Hey, what's happening? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast, the 120th one for those of you counting, alongside
We are
Chris.
aging.
We're getting old. We're getting old.
Yes, aging
That's Chris Level.
gracefully.
I'm Choice Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction. Christopher, we have made it all the way through a regular basketball season. There's still a lot to go, we hope, in terms of meat left on the bone for the basketball season or basketball team. Um, but you've made it through the 20 gamer and got to be flying pretty high if you're a Texas Tech fan or associated with this program in any facet or type. Man, I can't. I don't know, Level, if you could have imagined that even if you were high on this team coming into the season, I don't know if you could have imagined a season going quite like this one has.
Well, especially when you start out the league race 0-1.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I've said this to you before, but I know I had a conversation with my wife about it and with John Harris
Mhm.
about it, but just I think we've touched on some of these things before. It's just you get back into that Thanksgiving and pre-Christmas time frame, and you just
Yeah,
and then here you are on into the second week in March, and you can squint and you can kind of go, okay, but I just don't know if anybody kind of envisions where it's going. And sometimes you have you're rolling way back at that time, and everybody's like, golly, and you can't sustain it, and yet you were kind of this slow burn, but
yeah,
it's just incredibly impressive what Grant was able to do with this team night in and night out. Because the hardest thing in this, I guess, in a 20 game conference schedule, there's plenty of nights where it's easy. Like, I know that I don't have to say a whole lot to my kids or my players,
right.
but there's a lot of nights that aren't. And whether it's travel or weather or the way these games are stacked or who's playing hot or who you're without that night, whatever, it's just been incredibly impressive that, like, pretty much, man, like Grant's team showed up every night out on the steel.
Yeah,
And like the worst loss they got or they had was in Tucson on a Saturday night, which was an 11 out of 10 as far as atmosphere. And they wanted revenge, and I think that their head coach is like, that was the best game we played all year. Well, I mean,
yeah,
you earned the right for them to do that against you, and that's really
sure.
was the low point. You lose in overtime to Iowa State. You come all the way back and then come up short against UCF, and you just don't quite have it all, and barely lose one to TCU. On and on it goes, and then obviously you lose the one to Houston as well, which I guess that may have been your numbers wise. Anyways, but it's just he has squeezed water out of a rock in that they just show up and compete every night out, and that's just the mark of a really good coach, because it's hard to do that. Life gets in the way, injuries get in the way, location gets in the way, and yet they just,
Yeah,
and it's been a lot of fun. And as my wife said to me, I don't want this to end. And I'm like, I get it.
yeah, yeah,
And you're now into the portion of the schedule where you're in one and done scenarios in these next two tournaments, and you just don't know when it will end. But boy, the wins when you get them are just sink your teeth into them fun. To have if you get them whenever you get them, really all throughout however many more we get.
I want this to end on a Monday night in April. That's what I want. Now
Yeah.
that is extremely hard. We've experienced it as Texas Tech fans one time when it was that close, but man, I can't. It's hard not to watch this team Level and get that kind of excitement that wells up in you because of how good this team is. You talk about the coaching staff, you've got a heck of a staff, but you've got some really good players as well, and that combination gets really dangerous in March.
Yeah, and it just it speaks to because we have been down this road before. We've gotten to the second weekend of the tournament before, and you've
Mhm.
gotten to the third weekend of the tournament before, which is the Holy Grail,
Yep.
and it's hard.
It
It's
is.
very difficult. You need a little luck. You need to be really good. You need to be healthy and all the stuff. But I yeah, I just think you're legit.
Mhm.
And there's some different things about your makeup that suggests to me that you are going to be a tough out. And it doesn't mean that you won't get, knocked. But it's going to be very difficult for somebody to do it. But and I watch some of these teams around the country, and
Yeah,
there's plenty of kryptonite out there for you. I mean,
sure.
the big physical teams, that they make me nervous. And that's some nights the threes don't go in, or as many
Right.
of them don't go in, and JT getting in foul trouble. There's some different, but
There it is. Yeah.
it's a lot of fun, man. I just think you've got some staying power, and at this point, I would tell you. I don't know at what level, and I have to see what it looks like when if it plays out this way. But I'll be pretty. I don't know if like the right word is gut punched,
Yeah.
but I'll be pretty disappointed if you're not into the second weekend of the tournament, which will require you to beat a six seed or a seven seed or something like
Hmm.
that, and that's assuming you get past the first round again. But the
Right.
tournament, we start penciling stuff in, and
Oh,
we start
sure.
going by these
Sure.
numbers, and then sports happen, and it just you could toss that crap. No, nobody's worried about your stupid seed, and or anything like that because Norfolk State or Utah Valley
Right. Right.
or St. Bonaventure, I don't know. They
Yeah.
they have other plans, and that's the beauty of the tournament, and that's why we love it so much.
I mean, yeah, you've said it a million times, Level, but there's no better reality television than sports. But I mean, there is no better reality television than this tournament because no one has a clue what's going to happen. You can fill out a bracket. There's never been a perfect bracket. It's the best time. I think a lot of sports fans. College basketball is not my favorite sport in particular, but this time of year is my favorite time of sports year. It's just, and I think a lot of college fans share that sentiment because it is a blast and it's so much more. I mean, you can put times 10, times 100 on it when you've got a team that has a real shot um and Tech is one of those
That's
teams.
that's the one part. As weird as this sounds, and I just hear me out.
Yeah.
The one part about being in it is I miss so much of it.
Oh yeah. No, I get it. I get it.
And I want to live out both scenarios. It's like I mean you're talking to somebody
Oh sure.
who I did this one time growing up, one time, and I'll never forget the day that I did it. But the first day of the tournament, I maybe had a little scratch in my throat, and it was just like, and I was
Oh yeah.
like, I think I was a sophomore or junior in high school, so I was old. I mean, I was older. I mean, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it today. And I think my mom maybe knew, and I sat home and I put up like a set of pillows in the den, and I just turned that bad boy on, and and then I did. I guess she's like, "Well, are you feeling better the next day?" Because I'm like, "Well, there's more games on today, right?" I probably didn't fake the cough enough, and I had my buddies at school being like, "Hey, dude, what's wrong? Why'd you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm fine." I just
Nothing's wrong.
yeah. I mean, probably a
Uh,
sign of things to come.
Mama Level let you get away with it.
Yeah,
That's a good mom. That's a
I
good
didn't
mom.
ever I didn't really ever go that route.
Oh yeah.
Other than that one time, honestly,
Hey.
yeah, but I just loved this event. And so when you're in the middle of it and you're
Oh yeah.
there and you're in a team, you don't consume like you're sitting at your favorite bar or at
Sure.
home
Sure.
and just taking it all in because you're right there. And so when you're right there, it's like what else is happening elsewhere? I mean, last year one of the greatest moments in the tournament was Jack Golke knocking off Kentucky in front of us. I
Yeah.
mean, right
Let's see
in
it.
front of
Yeah.
us. and he's this white dude is burying threes from all over the gym, and I had a dude from the Associated Press next to me going, he's just like elbowing me, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, and so I was fortunate enough to like watch that in person, and then obviously our Red Raiders,
Yeah.
the next game, yeah, it didn't go
Want to
well,
forget
but
that one, but
it's just an awesome time of year. You've earned some rest this week. I think it's much needed. I think what you did at Arizona State was you outlasted the Sun Devils,
yep.
and you need a few days to hit pause and to D5 missed some of the first half, able to come back. Federico only played 13 minutes. He's got a wrap on his knee that they're just kind of that he had it on the Colorado. They're just trying. Everybody's just kind of dinged up, and you're mentally grinded down, and you need a little time, and yet you've earned the right for 10. You ready for this?
Hmm.
10 teams will be done cakes there in KC before you tip it off in your
That's
first game.
nuts. That's nuts.
If you want some perspective.
So
Yeah, 10.
different than we're used to with this tournament.
Yes, but that's also, I mean, this I think this would have been the either the highest or tied for the highest seed you would have ever had. I guess in 19 maybe you were a 2 seed. I think too. So this would be tied for the highest seed you've ever had. But now, granted, you lost that Thursday night game against WV that night, and and then you went on a run to go all the way to Minneapolis. But yeah. So anyway, but yeah, 10 teams will be four on Tuesday, four on Wednesday, two Thursday morning, and then you'll tip it up against what I'm going to guess is Baylor or Kansas State is what it
Yeah,
looks like. And
most likely.
I think you dodge the road crowd that Kansas could potentially offer up. So I think again that was a big time positive, just the way that worked out with the final day of the regular season.
So, well, that brings us to our first question level. It's talking about the Big 12 tournament, and this one is from Mark. It says, Level, how all in do you think the Red Raiders will be on trying to win the Big 12 tournament, or will they try to rest guys for the big tournament?
Okay, so I appreciate this question, and I totally get it. I think it all depends on various scenarios because there's levels to this. There are teams that use this conference tournament as a lifeline. There
Uh-huh.
are teams that try to improve their scenario,
Right.
and there are teams that really have nothing to gain and only something to lose. Texas Tech is probably as close to that category as anything else.
Sure.
Could you improve your situation? Potentially. But it's not necessarily a needle mover to the committee like as much as people think in most years.
Right.
Um, it's a money-making venture for the league. It's great for fans. The whole thing. I mean, I've been to many. I used to go to Southwest Conference tournaments at Reunion Arena. I mean, you talk about a happy young man that just was setting up at Reunion Arena
Oh, yeah.
watching game after game after game. I'm like, this is awesome. And so I do think they will. And one, who do you want to rest? And if you rest whoever, like who gets to play? Because see, what happens is if you rest anybody, you're putting your other seven or six guys like in harm's way, right? Your roster is just goofy in that, or it's a weird scenario to where as you've tried to, if as you've blown teams out,
Hmm.
there's not just hey everybody down there, come on in.
Right.
No, they're you're trying to preserve, I gather, Leon's redshirt status.
Seems like it.
Um, um, EY, which gosh, I wish he was available and healthy right now because he would be soaking up some of these minutes.
Yes.
And then you've got Jack Francis and Corbin Green, and obviously we know about Devin Cambridge not being on the team anymore. So there's just not this army of like, hey, folks that can suck up a bunch of minutes for you, or to hey, we're going to rest them and get these guys. It just doesn't really happen. So I do think you'll put your best foot forward here But at some point, if there's somebody gets dinged up and you need to tap the brakes, or if you get down in a game, I can see you going, "Hey, man, like, okay, we tried, it's not working, but
Yeah.
hey, congrats to you on the other end." Because think about this, you could be on paper, mind you,
Hmm.
if you were to make a run here. I mean, how physical do we think back-to-back games versus Arizona and Houston would be?
Pretty physical.
Probably
Yeah.
pretty taxing. So
Yeah.
that's why I think the question is being asked. And again, if you were 10 or 11 deep, I'd be like, "Pfft." But when you're 8 deep and you've had some issues and there's not a ton to gain,
Yeah.
fair question to ask. Totally get it.
Okay. Kind of along the same lines here at Level. It says, "What's wrong with Darian Williams?" And sorry, why was he out of the game for so long on Saturday?
Is his little ankle issue have you choked up, Woodman?
It makes me
Is that
sad. I want to see him out there.
okay? I got a tickle, yeah, man.
Oh,
Just
it's,
struggling.
it's that time of
Yeah,
year.
no, he. I think he's fine. I think that, but this is probably in lines with the way that the question or why the question was asked. I was very thankful that he came back and played the I think 14 minutes in the second half. He looked like himself.
Hmm.
He got a good sweat going. He was able to be a big part of the when you pulled away from the Sun Devils.
Right.
But again, and he's kind of one of those guys where I'm not real sure what all's going on because I feel like he's just kind of like always kind of got something right, and
Sure.
he's gone down in a heap a bunch of times this year.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, dude, please get up. But I just think he's got that old man body, kind of old man game, old man, so, but you're not going anywhere too far without him, I would think. And
Agreed. Yeah.
so, depending on what the issue is or what they get back into town and what it looked like, and if everything's clean mental health and we just need some rest, or yeah, he's swelled up, whatever it may be. Then we'll just kind of see. But I think he's okay. That's what Grant told me after the game. Because I asked, I'm like, I think everybody holding their collective breath
Yeah.
when he only plays like 2 minutes, and then he goes to the locker room because you're like thinking, here we are in Tempe, Arizona. By the way, dude, you ever been there? You ever been on the Arizona State campus?
I have, but it's been a long time.
Define long time.
2006 Insight Bowl long.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
that yeah
So so
that's
I don't
20 years ago.
yeah, I don't think that counts.
Yeah, and their stadium is completely different, and that area is completely different,
Sure.
and all
Sure.
that stuff. Yeah, that was the giant comeback against Minnesota. Shout out to Glenn
It's
Mason,
a
who
lot of
got
fun.
fired from that game. Um,
Why are you shouting out Glenn Mason? You could shout out Shannon
well,
Woods
I
or you
just
could
I
shout
felt
out
like that I was trying to be nice,
oh, okay.
like
Okay.
yeah. I mean, Mike
Because
Leach
he
was
li
pi Mike Leach was pissed
yeah.
that Glenn Mason got fired because of his comeback. He was like, "This is a disgrace to the coaching fraternity
I
or the
remember that.
profession." It's like, hey man, we got hot, then you go letting the guy go, whatever.
Yeah.
I digress. That is if anyone out there is listening and is curious or whatever, and you're gonna make a road trip in the fall with the football team,
Mhm.
go to Tempe.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, it's just I can see why the Kenny Dillinghams of the world and the Bobby Hurleys of the world have to really fight scratch and claw for attendance because a couple things. One, the weather should be illegal. Okay. And it's not always like that. I mean,
Sure.
sometimes it's hotter than the face of the sun.
Yeah.
But it's just such a nice, easy on the eyes area. There's a river, this river right by like their
Okay.
campus and everything, and it's just and everything's been built up
Yeah.
and all that. It's just and the stadiums is kind of set in the mountains, kind of like the BYU scenario. It's just I don't know, man. I would get in a lot of trouble there. I think it's 2 hours from Vegas. I'll say this too.
There you go.
Everybody out there is pretty.
Yeah.
point blank. Anyway, it's just it's a yeah. So if you're gonna, like, yeah, I want to try to figure out a road trip to go to and take a couple extra days and do that. Go to Tempe. Take your golf clubs.
Yeah,
Take your bride or the the husband or whoever's listening to this and
yeah.
like spend a few extra days out there. You will enjoy. It's impressive.
I mean, if you're talking football too this year, that's going to be a pretty big game. I mean, according to
Absolutely, it
the
is,
the
or
Vegas
should be.
odds on
Yeah.
who some of the best teams in the Big 12 are going to be. So, yeah, okay,
Well, you say that, but Arizona State wasn't supposed to be a great football team this past year, and
fair.
they
Yeah,
were. Yeah.
fair. You know what? I'll take your advice. I'll go to Tempe. For football.
Well, you're stuck. What I don't
Yeah.
need you to do, we're going to be in a routine, and I don't need you veering off the routine and like going into business for yourself,
I don't know what you're talking
going up
about.
early, staying late, whatever. No, you've got a job to do,
I
and the
will.
Red Raiders will have a job to do then as well. And we need
Very
to be.
fair.
It'll be a business trip for you and I. If you want to go gallivanting around, you should have done it this past weekend to Tempe with the basketball deal,
Touche.
or yeah. So there you
But we might get one of those 9 or 10 p.m. kickoffs
go.
too. We don't know. You never know, man.
That's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible.
All right. Back to the basketball side of things level. This question says, who are the biggest overachievers and underachievers in Big 12 play in your mind, Chris?
Well, I think that, there's levels to this.
Hmm.
I think obviously Kansas, an underachiever, based on they were picked to win it.
Yes.
They are not. I think now, granted, they finished sixth, so it's not like the wheels just totally fell off. But compared to what their expectations were and all that,
Yeah.
um, I think BYU and Texas Tech were two. They were like +5 on the preseason
Correct.
predictions compared to
Correct.
where they finished. And again, so much of this is like you looking at those preseason predictions, which are just wrong. They're proven to be wrong most of
Often.
the time,
Yeah.
and yet we like you like this is the barometer of, well, this is how it was supposed to go, and this happened, and so it doesn't necessarily need to be like the what you point to say
Hmm.
under and overachieve. So shame on me because this is what I just did. But I do think Kansas fell short. I think Baylor fell short of what some expectations were. Injuries or just the lack of chemistry dictate some of that. I do think BYU being able to win 7 games in a row at one point going into Ames this last week and
Yeah.
win
Yeah.
is impressive. They maybe have won 8 in a row now. Now that I say that about BYU, they're
It
just
was
been
a.
they just gotten so hot and gotten so much better. And it feels like it was 3 years ago whenever I was in Salt Lake City and you were beating them on a Tuesday night, eating what's the thing, the Cougar Tail deal, and watching Cosmo do his thing. That just feels like an eternity ago, and
Yeah.
it was legitimately over 2 months ago. And I just think BYU was a much different team then. You probably are a much different team now, but so are they.
Sure.
And
You
in
got them at the right
Houston,
time. Yeah.
Houston,
Yeah.
everybody's gonna like, well, Houston was picked to win it, and that's what they did. No, they weren't. They weren't picked to win this thing. And not only did they win it, they like circled, they were running laps
Man.
around everybody. Like, hey man, y'all catch up.
Do you
Um,
remember what Kelvin Sampson said in his post game press conference in Houston against Tech? He said,
yep.
We're not going to go 20-0. No one's going to go 20-0." And they're an overtime game away with Texas Tech from going 20-0, which is nuts.
Yeah, he said to expand, he said something along the lines of, the team that wins this thing is going to probably win 15 or 16
Yeah,
of them.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what he
Yeah,
said.
that's exactly what he
And
said.
this is why, and I feel like that I hate this conversation, but
Sure.
this is why Kelvin Sampson should be Big 12 Coach of the Year. And I feel like when I say that, like it's almost like knocking Grant, which
No, it's not.
in no way, because Grant should be in that conversation. I think Grant absolutely did the second best. I think BYU's guy did the third best. I mean, I think that's where it stacks up. But to go 19-1 in this
Yeah.
deal, because Choice, I see it.
Yeah, I know.
I travel these roads and these trips and these late nights, and you see you see when you get squeezed, you see how the tired legs, the emotions, the grind, the injuries, the who are we gonna have tonight? We're gonna play
Yeah.
Houston with just six guys. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I see all that, and to maneuver your way through this and only drop one of them, a 1 point loss in overtime is it's just one of the most impressive things I've seen as far as Big
Yeah.
12 basketball goes, certainly. And I don't maybe it's not the previous Big 12, but again I would argue in some ways this version is better than other versions that we've had.
Yeah.
I do because this particular year you went a whole extra week of conference
Mhm.
games. There was one more road trip. There's and nobody really sucks in this deal. I mean, again, you're talking about teams that really struggle. Well, I mean, you think Texas Tech's pretty good, yes? Is
I
that
would say
fair?
so. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, UCF figured out a way to beat you.
Yeah.
Arizona State almost
Almost.
got you.
Yep.
They rolled in here as a 16.5 point underdog, and I'm like, what is this Globetrotters sorcery that you are trying to cast onto my sweet red Raiders on this night a couple of weeks ago? And if that's the version of they're terrible or they suck, then that I don't know what you're watching, but that speaks to the
Sure.
league in its entirety, and to just maneuver your way through it all without so much as a hiccup is just really impressive. And
Yeah.
keep in mind that same UCF team, Houston, that was the next closest potential loss. Juwan Roberts dropped in a buzzer beater with a second and a half left to go in that game in Orlando.
Sure.
And, because I mean, heaven forbid somebody else help Texas Tech out and try to grow a pair
Right.
and try to, I mean, somebody's got to be willing to beat these guys. Texas Tech can't just do it all themselves, but that's why they won the league and by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah. Almost any other year, Grant McCasland would be your Big
I
12 Coach of
agree.
the Year.
And
It's
he's going
just
to get some National Coach of the Year consideration
sure
and
he
region stuff and all
and
that stuff.
should.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
and again, he's done a phenomenal job. I just think that like this is a year where
Yeah.
how do you not give it to Samson? It's just what they did was just because they had their injury issues
Right.
but just not have a night off, not to just show up and not have it one night, that just never happened with them.
By the way, wrapping around, if you want to get technical based off the preseason rankings, West Virginia was the biggest climber. They were picked 13th and finished seventh, in a tie for seventh. And the biggest faller was Cincinnati. They're the ones that had the,
Yeah, major disappointment. It could
yeah,
cost Wes Miller his job.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Coach Hurley, I think Coach Dawkins at UCF. I think there could be some changes
yeah,
in the coming days or weeks as it relates to again, but it depends on how serious these schools are about basketball, and then also with revenue share, some schools may go, we're
yeah,
just going to have to ride it out. We can't afford to make a change right now.
yeah. I think you're going to see a lot more of that around the country for sure, where there are less firings over the next
I
couple of
mean,
years.
you could say the same about your women's basketball coaching situation here.
No doubt. No doubt.
I mean, three women's coaches got shown the door over the weekend. Houston, BYU, and why am I blanking? It's Houston. It was BYU, and there's another one.
And another one. We'll go with
Yeah,
that.
sorry.
You're good.
I knew that. Why am I? Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, three changes were made, and anyway, and oh, yeah, duh, it was Arizona State.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Okay.
because Bobby Hurley has a worse record than the Arizona State
Yeah.
women's basketball coach and all that, and so there's people going like, okay, what's
But
the
can they
deal here?
afford to fire two coaches? Maybe they knew they were keeping Hurley. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll see.
yeah.
Okay, couple more quick basketball questions. We're not even going to talk football, even though they're starting uh, spring football up this week. We'll get into it in the coming weeks. This one says, Level, what are the chances that JT Toppin stays for another year at Tech?
Slim and none, and Slim just left town.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think. I just think. I mean, Woodman, if depending on when people consume this, I fully expect him to be first team All-American.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
that's
high
tops. I
cotton.
mean,
Yeah.
it's not National Player of the Year, but it's as close as you're going to get.
Yeah.
I do think he'll be Big 12 Player of the Year, but the first team All American stuff is just like
Sure.
that just speaks to. And I think that this was a scenario. He's 19 years old. He came here with this goal in mind.
Yeah.
I think that I think he's achieved and played great ball and done a lot for you. I do think that you will at least have a conversation with him and say, okay, here's this. Would you think about it? But I mean,
Right.
he's in the lottery kind of mid first round conversations. I don't know. We're Red Raiders here, right? And we want what's best for but I just don't know if it would be smart for JT to come back.
Yeah. If he is
You
a
know,
first
like
round pick,
yeah,
then
I don't know.
have
I
at
mean,
it, young
again, I
man.
would
Yeah.
now. Do I think Darion Williams should come back? I do. I do. I think will he? I don't know.
Yeah.
But because I don't think that he's in the same conversation anywhere close to it as far as a draft prospect.
Sure.
But
Sure.
anyway, we got time to break all that stuff down.
Of course. And last one of the day. This one comes from Matt. It says level. What are the chances we get a two seed, and what does Texas Tech have to do to get a two seed in the NCAA tournament?
You know,
As we record this, Lenardi's latest bracketology for ESPN has Tech as the last two seed. So
Mhm.
that's where it sits at the moment. But
I don't know if you're gonna make it.
yeah,
I think you're staring straight at a three, and I wonder. I guess if you drop your game on Thursday night, that maybe there's a chance you would jeopardize falling off the three line. But
surely not. I think you lock the
I
three up.
just don't know if you've. Again, these are about tiebreakers here,
A
man.
lot of them. Yeah.
And like Wisconsin helped in this argument by dropping a inexcusable home game to Penn State, a
Hmm.
Penn State team that's not even good enough to qualify for the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin's kind of in that sweet spot. Three of the four teams are going to be one seeds, in my opinion, from the SEC. Tennessee, Bama, Florida, and Auburn.
Yeah.
One of which will be a two seed. I guess you could say one of those, like only two could get a one seed, and then if you want to talk Michigan State or St. John's being a one, maybe, but St. John's is kind of in that sweet spot. They just upset Marquette on the road. It's just kind of crowded right there. I do think Iowa State has kind of fallen back a bit, but I think it may be difficult. And what people are going to want to do, maybe myself included, is if you make it to say Saturday this next week and you win a couple of games in KC, you're going to wonder, did we do enough?
Yeah.
But what A&M just pulled is they beat the number one overall seed this past week, and
Yeah.
they went from losing like four in a row to all of a sudden going. They had one of their Houston type wins. It's just a win that like nobody else. It's like the ultimate trump card.
Yeah.
You just lay the ace of spades on the table and go.
Yeah.
But that's so when you start talking tiebreakers, I do think I do think based on what you've done you are going to Wichita or Denver. I think that can't be taken away from you. I really don't. I think
Seems like
between
it. Yeah.
Houston, A&M, Texas Tech, maybe a Bama, maybe a somebody else, but I think there'll be, there's four spots, two at each site to go geography, and I do think you've earned the right to be. But the more I look at it, you start to crunch it and sort of break some ties, and then I had the Tech fan going, "Wow, what you finished way higher than Iowa State in the deal. Why is Iowa State? Why would they get consideration over you? Well, they have a win over you in Lubbock. That's your fault, not anybody else's. That's your fault. And as you have done better, that win in Lubbock is pretty damn impressive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Iowa State had a little more, actually, quite a bit more juice in the non-conference than you did.
Yeah.
Your non-conference schedule ranked is like close to 300.
Yeah.
So St. Joe's needs to keep winning. It'd be nice if
Please.
Syracuse. It'd
Yeah.
be nice if Syracuse would try to just pull their head out and figure out something. But
Sure.
there's just not offer up here. So I think you're kind of have settled in right there in that three, maybe two, maybe four scenario.
Well, Level, next time you and I chat with another podcast, we'll know whether you're a 2 or a 3 seed. We'll know whether you're in Denver or Wichita. We'll know what you've done in the Big 12 tournament. Whole lot going to happen between now and then. And I don't know what Andy Williams is talking about. This is the most wonderful time of the year. So
Oh,
giddy up.
you were sitting on that one. That's so, oh,
No, I
geez.
was about to say I had to go look up who's saying that. I'm
That's
being
on the
honest.
Home Alone. That's on the Home Alone 2 soundtrack. It's a phenomenal. It's one of my favorite Christmas songs of all time.
Home Alone 2
Yeah.
better than Home Alone 1. Just,
I think they can't be separated. I think it's just
they're
like the
together. Okay.
franchise. Yeah, I just think that yeah, it's
That's fair. That's fair. I'll stick with that one. So
same but different, and they're yeah, it is one of the few where the two is as good as the one. But I just think that that's
okay,
yeah, leave them alone.
I
Now
can live with
three and
that.
four and five, and then the bootleg Home Alone crap. And it's March, man. We should be talking about St. Patrick's Day movies, not
Is there a such thing?
I
Okay,
have no idea.
fair enough.
I'm sure there's some scary movie involving a leprechaun. I mean, Google it. I'm sure
I
it's
bet
out
you're
there.
right. I bet you're right.
Yeah,
Level.
yeah.
Appreciate it, man. Good stuff as
I
always.
appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for hosting. Thank you to Cantex Roofing, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
He's Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. This has been the Ask Level podcast brought to you by Double T 97.3.